Welcome to the Bold Dreams Held Loosely podcast. I'm your host, Taryn Watts. And in this episode, I am joined by my guest, DeAngela Johnson, a mind rebel coach. In this episode, DeAngela and I explore her journey in having a beautiful, bold dream for her life in many areas of her life, specifically in relationships, and how she had this dream for her relationship, and then how, her journey of how this came to be. DeAngela so fully embodies what it means to have a vision for your life and hold it loosely in both hands. Her gratitude, her joy, her playfulness in this process, even despite the path she had to walk to get to where she is today, is so incredibly inspiring. We're calling this episode Rising in Love, and we hope you enjoy. Welcome, DeAngela.
Thank
It
you.
is so good. So good to have you here.
Thanks so much.
And I just want to, there's a reason I asked you to come and be a guest on the Bold Dreams Held Loosely podcast. And you are currently, as we record this video, you are taking part in the coach training series, the MRA. And one thing that I noticed, especially in part one, when we were doing a lot of the visioning and all of the wonderful, beautiful visioning, big, bold dreams for defining those big, bold dreams for our lives. You, um, you, you've manifested some incredible things in your life.
I have. You're right.
And some of the stories you would share would literally blow me away when I read them or listened to them. And I thought, when I was thinking about who I wanted to chat with and have a conversation with this season, I thought, I want to talk to DeAngela, and I want to learn more about your story and how you've done it, how you've done this, how you've called in the love of your life using all sorts of visualization and journaling tools. And the other thing that has struck me so much about you, DeAngela, as I observe you, is I'm not sure I have ever heard anyone speak about their partner the way you do. Yeah, it's like it's making me emotional. It's I don't think I've ever heard anyone speak about their partner the way you do. And what the way you have impacted me just listening to you is you've this love and adoration and just such honor and respect and gratitude you have for your husband that just oozes out of your pores. I'm sure all the listeners are going to just also feel that energy from you as you start talking in a moment. But what that's done to me is it's reminded me of my love and adoration for my husband. And so you've like infused this in my heart just by listening to you.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I wanted to have you on here to learn more about your story and to learn more about your process.
Okay.
Yeah.
As I heard you formulating and building up to this question, I thought about how I feel like ever since I was a kid, I just had this sense that I had like guardian angels looking out for me or something. And even though there were definitely some giant challenges that I encountered, I was always the type to like, it reminds me of those dolls that like pop up, like they just, like if I felt, then I just pop right back up. Just very optimistic and always expecting a good outcome. It's just like my natural tendency. And then I started doing things. And when I learned about the power in manifesting, the life of your dreams, I already naturally did a lot of those things. So I thought, oh, that's interesting because I, like I said, I would go through some challenging experiences, pretty challenging ones, to be honest. But after I dealt with those emotions or didn't, it's been a
Hmm.
journey.
Fair.
I would eventually get to the point where I look at like, well, was there a lesson in that? So those are just things I would do as I would go through challenging times in my life, is wonder like maybe there was a reason. Like that's in the end, I'm gonna be able to take some golden nugget from that and it'll help me in the long run. And so when it came to, I don't know, I might be jumping too far ahead if I'm going right into, how I met my spouse, but let's just say that before I met him, the relationship scene was not a really good one. I always felt like, I love myself. I'm very self-assured and have a lot of self-confidence, but I feel like who I am today and who I was when I entered into the last relationship prior to meeting my husband, um, wholly different people. Like we were very
Mm.
young, but I had a lot of healing to do. And there's no way that I would have, like, if that was presented itself for some reason today, I would have probably, he wouldn't even be on my radar, my ex.
Mm.
Bless his heart, as they say. But my daughter asked me yesterday, because my daughter is a product of that relationship that didn't work out. And she asked me, she's like, I cannot for the life of me see how you two ended up together. And I was like, maybe it was just to create you, you
Mm.
know, because she was the best thing to come out of that. And she's always has had like an old soul. So she sees and has seen this love unfold. She saw the friendship develop. So she saw what it was like with her father, and she saw this. And it would have been really funny to have her here. I know she can't wait to listen to this. But yeah, so she saw the whole thing and my growth, in between. And I guess the one thing that I told my husband is like, yeah, I probably could have cut that short a lot sooner, because that was 18 years that were really traumatic. I'm not gonna lie, they were traumatic. Um, it was during conversation with someone that I realized I was actually in an emotionally abusive relationship. I didn't even know that. In my mind, abuse looks like someone's hitting you, and he didn't really like put his hands on me, not maybe like once when I tried to leave, but he mostly was like a little terror because he would get very angry with me when I would try to leave the relationship. And I'm sharing this with you because it's such a juxtaposition. So I'm like, let you know, this is where
Yeah.
it was. And so yeah, he would throw things when I would say, this isn't working. I try and try, and he just couldn't open his ears to hear what I had to say. It wasn't we didn't communicate well. And even when we tried therapy, he wasn't really in that space to want to really hear me out. And so that was never going to work. But I tried and tried, and so the thing at the end of the day, though, I never really felt safe. I
Hmm.
never really felt seen. He would look at me like, I think he was mesmerized, but conflicted because he just didn't get me. And so, yeah, it's just so many ways today things pop up, and I'm like, that is so funny. Like my husband today, Joseph, he'll say how much he loves how curious I am about things, and all the reading that I like to do, and I'm like, that's so funny because my ex was like, why do you read so much? Like it
Mhm.
just didn't get me. But anyway, so we broke up. Can I just take you on a little journey? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm like excited to share.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
So we broke up and I was already in therapy. And my therapist tells me that I mourned that relationship while I was still in it, which makes a lot of sense because
Hey, sorry, say that one more time.
I
You were
mourned it while I was still
while
in
you
it.
were still in it. Ooh, yeah.
And I say it makes a lot of sense because I was ready to go, but he would never let me go. He just like clung to me. And in that space, I felt like a bird with, like with its wings clipped or just,
Hmm.
like I was being strangled in a way. And there was actually a time when I thought, well, if I just stay with him, because it was this fight between me and him, I wanted to go and he wouldn't let me go. And I thought, well, if I just go ahead and stay, then I can not be worried about looking over my shoulder and fearing, what might happen. Because he was the type who might stalk me or who knows what. And I never felt safe physically or psychologically. So there was a time when I sort of sat there like, well, maybe I could just stay and not fulfill my life dreams or purpose, and he'll be happy and he won't, you know, be so scary. And I sat with that for maybe 5 minutes and I was like, there's just no way, because I was right at the cusp of my spirit breaking. And I'm like, do I just give up and let that happen or do I go? And I came out of that thinking, you know what? I'm going to go for it and separate myself by, any stretch. That's a whole story in itself. I made up this thing about going to England. I used to go to England for my job. So I told him I was going and I wasn't. I was moving and I bought a new place and I kind of escaped. But I was already in therapy. And so that was really helping me to like get stronger and feel like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I felt empowered.
Yeah.
And I started to kind of like get new life breathed into me, once I realized, like we tell our clients, it's inside me. I have everything inside me. And I started to realize, yes, I was denying that. And so I just, went on this adventure, making sure that I was like finding out, like really relearning myself in a way. And it actually worked out where we separated and eventually, we never spoke again. There was some clinging on from him, but he let me go and I prayed really hard about that. I did this cord cutting ceremony and it seemed like actually after that, like he really let me go and I could kind of like walk about freely and everything and just not be so scared or on pins and needles. And then it was on and popping, as they say, because I was like traveling and hanging out with my friends and just exploring what life is like being single, doing things that I had wanted to do for so long. I feel like it was like another blossoming of sorts. And I was having so much fun with life. I started to think, okay, one of the reasons why I didn't pursue a life coach certification before was because my life was kind of like not in alignment. And I felt like
Mhm.
I would be being a hypocrite if I was trying to tell other people, hey, you can do this. And I'm not in that space. And so I I got to a point where I was actually able to see that maybe unfolding for me. And I began researching programs and things and kicked it around and I got the nerve to finally like, okay, that's the one. Let me figure out how I can make this happen. And in the midst of that, I had this habit, like, I'm not ready to buy a home just yet, but let me just get all my ducks in a row. So when I'm ready, you know, and that I think is part of the manifestation. It's like I'm prepping, I'm preparing, like I already know it's gonna happen. I just oops, sorry. I said sorry to my pop filter, but not. Is that audio still okay?
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah.
But yeah, I just start getting ready and I can feel it like in my heart. I already know that I'm going to when I was not looking for a home, I knew that when I was ready, that I was going to find the right home for me, and it was going to feel so good. I imagined, how it would be to just walk through it and, come park outside and like stand back and take my first look at it and then walk through and just from room to room looking out the windows, like I can just imagine, like close my eyes and feel how it feels to be in that space, what it smells like, and how my heart is just like so light and happy. And um, I do that, and that's like a natural tendency for me. So I did that, and I did find my home, and I found this book, and it was called The Soulmate Secret by Ariel Ford. Um, and she talked about like exercises you can do and things that you can do to sort of prepare yourself, your living space, your life to make room for someone. And I was like, well, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm not trying to really, So, but let me just do these things because I think it's going to feel really good and it'll get me. It's kind of like, when you plant your seeds,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, I'll do that. So I'll be getting ready. And to me, it felt like almost right in line with my healing journey and where I was on that because I didn't need a relationship. I had plenty of, companionship and friends and, a full life. Um, but I did what she said. And one of the things that stuck with me, or at least how I interpreted it, is like if you looked at your room, your bedroom, like could you see love unfolding in there and like clean it up, like make it nice, make it pretty. And
Mm.
don't laugh too hard, but like even like don't wear like your worst underwear or worst pajamas to bed. Like get some really pretty things that you feel good in. And so I started doing that. I got rid of all these things that were kind of like worn and tattered and no matter what it was. And I just got really nice things that I felt good in, you know, romance, sexy, whatever. I felt like that. And I'm just going to bed by myself. But I would do the things, and she said, make a list of the characteristics of the person, your person that you want, to have in your life, and how do they make you feel? And just, I thought about that, and it was supposed to be like 25 days. I had 50. I'm like this and that, and I was very clear because of what I had exited. By then, it was like 4 years before what I didn't want, and it was really fun putting that list together too. It didn't feel like out of reach. It didn't feel impossible. It was like, yeah, this is what he's gonna be like this. And so I had so much fun putting that list together. I actually shared it with Joseph. He was my friend at that time.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, we were friends for 8 years. Um, and I guess I could back up because we were friends even while like the last probably what would it be like? I don't know, 7 years of the relationship that I was in. Like when I was exiting out, my math is bad. That's not right. But
Mhm.
we were friends for a good chunk of it because I met him in 2010, and that relationship ended in filed for divorce in 2016. So yeah, um, but we were just friends, and the way I met him, I think, is interesting. Reflecting back on that, I was at the bedside of my best friend's sister. Her sister had had a stroke. She was 41 and it wasn't looking good. And we were just there, like, oh, as you could imagine, a very emotional time. And in walks Joseph. And I barely paid him any attention, but he was introduced to me because he was cousins with my best friend and her sister, but I had never met him before. And funny story, his dad had a stroke that same day. So he had just left his dad's bedside when he knew he was going to be okay. And he rushed over to his cousin's bedside to see how she was doing. And I told him, I always tell him his big heart led him to me because we met. There wasn't much, we didn't keep in touch really after that. But a month later, I was at a comedy club and he was there and he remembered me. I guess he tells me now that he positioned himself where I had to walk by, when I was leaving. And he's like, oh, hey, nice meeting you. But
Strange.
I thought he worked there. And I'm always like, oh, do you work here? Can you give me a discount for some tickets? So and so's coming to town next month. I knew I love comedy, and I knew a comedian I liked was coming. And he's like, yeah, I'll look. Come to find out, he never did work there. Like he had like a VIP member, he gets the newsletter. And the
Right.
newsletter
Yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly.
I told him I'm still waiting for those tickets. But we exchanged numbers, and we would have these conversations ever since the first one. It's one of those where the very first call we had, it felt like we were old friends already, which was so, like, I was just comfortable immediately and really enjoyed our conversations. He had so much to say that was, I don't know, just really positive. And he was like me. He liked learning, and he liked to share what he learned. He was interested in all kinds of things. And so we'd have these marathon conversations, but we rarely saw each other, because he lived about 45 minutes from me, and I was still in that marriage.
Mhm.
And my husband at the time never thought that you could be friends with people of the opposite sex. So I kind of hid our friendship. He knew that I talked to him here and there, but he didn't know how much. And I always enjoyed our conversations, but he never like flirted with me really, or, there was none. It was just like really good friendship, solid friendship. I never felt like he had any other, ulterior motives or anything like that. So I actually opened up quite a bit to him, and he did the same thing with me. We just shared stuff with each other that, looking back, if I would have thought we were going to date, maybe I wouldn't have told him so much, especially so
Mm.
soon. But I just was an open book.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we shared so much. That friendship got built over the course of 8 years. And here I am, jumping back to the more present time. When I was like making that list, I giggled. I was like, Joseph, this is really funny. I have a list of 50 things and you have 49 of them. I was like, this is crazy. Like I
Wow.
had no clue. And I was like, in that 50th thing, you're working on that. That's the thing that you want to get that, you know, more in alignment with how you feel like you should be navigating life. And so I was like, that is just so funny. Haha. And then I had bought this place. He didn't say anything, by the way. He just kept quiet. I didn't even notice that then. But I had bought this townhome, and I asked if he could pretend to be my husband to the contractors that I was having to work with to get some plumbing and different issues fixed. And he was like, sure, because he's a good guy. He's a really nice guy, a good guy. And of course, he would say yes. And then I would jokingly call him sometimes. So this plumber gave me this quote, and here's what he said I need to do. Okay, honey, like just sort of teasing. But I think that planted a seed too, because I never viewed him as anything other than a really good friend of mine. But he came over, he helped me out, he put some shelves together and like helped me get this place, you know, feeling like a home. And I wanted to thank him, to take him just to a dinner. It wasn't anything fancy, to express my gratitude. And at first he shot me down. No, no, it's fine. But then we ended up going, and we had the best talk. I feel like what happened, we walked in with the state of our relationship one way, and when we walked out, something had shifted.
Oh my gosh.
It was, we both knew it. We both knew it. Because we had spent some time, maybe like 4 or 5 times in 8 years we had hung out. Like most of the time it was on the phone. We had gone to the movies. My daughter even came with us a couple of times. Um, but we never really, like, I wouldn't call any of those dates. But this one, it was something different. And part of it was we walked away with this bucket list of things we were gonna do together. We talked for so long, I'm pretty sure those people were glad to see us go. But yeah, just like thinking about a future together where we would go travel and do these things that really, made our hearts sing. Like it was so exciting to think about. And he was like in the car, I was driving back, and I'll never forget, he was like, you know, you're all right. He goes, I never realized it could be so much fun hanging out with you. And I was like, I don't know why you didn't know that, because I am super cool. But he was just like looking like, huh. And after that, it was like, it was it was pretty quick that we fell in love. I think that, well, I should say rose in love.
Mm-hmm.
But we had spent some time together, and then the thought had just occurred to me, like, I think I'm falling for this guy, like really, like something's happening. I could feel it, like butterflies and all that. And it was so different. When he would call, I'd be so excited. I always was happy to hear from him, but it was like a different level. And I had some other friends that I was talking to, and one person that I was actually going to go, I had plans to go visit out of state. And I was talking to Joseph about it. I was like, I don't think I'm going to go on that trip, because I know what's going to happen is I'm going to go there and I'm going to think of you the whole entire time. I'm not going to, I'm going to be a rude guest, because I'm going to want to be on the phone. And it just reminds me of, like, you don't want to hang those calls. You're like, oh, no, you hang up first, like it would be like that. And he was like, no, no, you should go. And I was thinking, why is he pushing me to do that? I think he didn't want to believe it either, like where we were headed, because he was on his own journey as well. Like, he
Mm.
also had gotten out of a long relationship and had one that was like, what do you call that when it's rebound? Like, looking back, he
Rebound.
realizes
Yeah.
that it was probably too soon. He just had the fear of being alone or something. So after that, he took a good 4 years being alone, working on himself.
Wow.
He was a smoker. He stopped smoking through diaphragmatic breathing. Like, he,
Mm.
yeah, he was doing his thing to make sure he was good, and in a good solid headspace before he moved on to anything. And I just don't think that he ever actually saw that, what that could look like, like it was, I'm still doing my work, but he was having fun. He had female friends, so he was good.
Mm.
Um, and then, this thing happened. One day he was like, is it too soon? You know, do you think? And I was like, I'm feeling the same way. Like, he barely could get the words out. And I was like,
Wow.
I'm feeling the same way. And so, yeah, we just were like, wow, we were in this bubble for so long. And sometimes it still feels like that. Um, yeah, sometimes it still feels like that, because it definitely feels like a safe space and a place where I can just like lean into and know that, you know, I'm good as I am. In the beginning, I worried about, him seeing my flaws and all that, but I know that he sees them. He still loves me just as much. And the same is true for me. Yeah. Taryn, do you mind if we take 1 second?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So we were both getting that feeling at the same time, and it was it was beautiful. It really was. I was so, you know, so thrilled, like falling in love with him was fun. It was really fun. It was great. Like, I told him, I was like, I'm all in. I didn't have any like reservations, and I thought, coming out of what I came out of, that
Yeah.
I was gonna hold back. I'm a very independent person. I thought getting in a relationship with a healthy person who also is independent, um, it might be a struggle to like even like lean on him, because I never really had that in my last relationship. It was more like I
Mm-hmm.
was, I was the adult. But
Mm,
in this situation, we're like on the same level, like we both have so much to offer each other, and he has my back. Like I want to jump ahead and tell you like all the things, but just in like big and small ways. But I shared with someone last week just how he holds my hand. If I could just take a minute, whenever we're walking, and or we might be in the car, but when he grabs my hand and he holds it, I love his hands because they're so like strong and like sturdy, and he has this grasp that feels like love. Like I'm protected but not smothered. I'm free to move. And that's just how he loves me. Like he sees all the big bold dreams that I have, and he's like right there cheering me along, and he knows even the things that I'm afraid to do that I feel called to do. And yeah, he's just like always like nudging me. Yeah, you got this, go ahead. And so when he holds my hand, I feel all of that every single time. Like it's amazing to me. I just like look at him like keep doing that. And I told him like every time he ever has touched me, it's always been to express his love or like make me feel comforted, safe, secure. He loves giving me massages, and I had what's it called? Whiplash from a car accident. So at first I was like trying to keep up with him. I'm like, okay, you give me one, I'll give you. He doesn't like him. Like he's much
mm,
more of he wants to be the one, helping or meeting needs, but he's not good at receiving. So that's something we've had to like, talk about. But I used to feel guilty, but now I'm like, no, yeah, come on. Do you see? I'm like, it
it's
needs to
good.
be
It's good right here. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, he texted me one day. He's like, okay, and it was just a text message. He's like, sit up straight, like don't hunch over, don't carry your stress that way. Like he knew how I was sitting.
Wow.
It's just like
DeAngela.
encouraging me to like. But yeah, I told him, I was like, every time you touch me, it's just so much love behind it. You've never touched me in a way that hurt. And then I sat with that and I was like, gosh, that sounds like someone who has been through something. Because I
Yeah.
don't I don't think most people would about the hurt part. I don't think
Like
most people would.
recognize that
Yeah.
and perhaps like appreciate it the way that you appreciate it and recognize it and
Yes.
let it just like, the way that you talk about how safely you feel held, how much love is behind his touch.
Mhm.
You are seeing those things and appreciating those things because you know the opposite of those.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why I had to make sure to touch on that a little bit because
Yeah.
that's so true. And I cry really easily. Most of the time, it's when I think about other people and like I'm very empathetic, empath. And I don't know, I don't keep a lot of distance there. I wear my heart on my sleeve, as they say. And so in my past relationship, it would be like, oh, there you go. Why are you crying? And I'm like, I can't help it.
Yeah.
But he didn't see it as often as it, naturally would happen because I didn't feel safe. But with Joseph, I'm like, any minute, the tears could just
Mm.
spring to my eyes because my heart goes out to, people that are hurting in the world. Just everything makes me cry. Commercials.
Just a sensitive soul.
And I told him, I was like, because what he saw, and this is what's really funny, what he saw was the strong version of me, like before we became more intimate and had a real relationship that was romantic. He always saw me as, like I said, this fiercely independent woman. I'm in work, I'm a leader, usually like managing teams and things like that.
Mhm.
So he just saw me, in my alpha
Mhm.
state. And with him and Ro and I talked about this, like in a relationship, like this one where you have a healthy partner and you can actually lean into both your masculine and your feminine, and
Yeah.
going into your feminine, it feels so good. Like I didn't even know I like to cuddle. I didn't think I did.
Wow.
I learned that about me. I really like to cuddle. So I'm like, okay, assume the position. And he like, wait, get on his chest.
Wow.
Yeah. So it feels good.
So, okay. So there's so many things that struck me about your story, about what you just shared. And one thing that's striking me the most is, um, and you said this both as you were talking about the home and the relationship.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's this famous quote, um, and the quote is, and I'm not sure, I've heard Oprah say this quote many times, but I actually don't think it was Oprah who coined it. I think it was some kind of ancient philosopher.
Uh-huh.
But the quote is, luck is when preparedness meets opportunity. Have you heard of
Mm-hmm.
that quote before?
I have, yes.
Luck is when preparedness meets opportunity.
Yes.
And there as you were talking, I was just jotting down little things that you were saying that were really calling to me. And one thing that was really evident is your commitment to preparedness,
Mm,
um, both as you talked about the home
yeah.
and as you talked about preparing the way for this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed was that in both of those scenarios, in both of the manifestation of those things, there was no gripping or urgency,
Yeah.
or you know, you you were so happy.
Mm-hmm.
You were solid, you were aligned, you were okay, like beyond okay, more than okay with
Yeah.
what you had, while still preparing for what's next,
Mm-hmm.
preparing for the new home, preparing for the relationship.
That's so true.
I think that's a really fun, like that's a fine dance,
Mm-hmm.
I think a really important piece of the puzzle, because you can list the 50 things all you want, and you
Right.
can, but if you're gripping, and that's, that bold dreams held loosely, that's exactly
Yes.
right.
Oh,
If you're
yes.
gripping on it and you're like obsessively searching for it, and
Desperation. Yeah.
desperation and urgency and all the constricted emotions, it's like we block ourselves off.
It's not the right energy.
Yeah, and your energy in both those situations just felt so open and joyous, and
Mm-hmm.
and preparing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
preparing the way.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true. Oh my gosh, that is so true. I just had this thought of I love going to it's called the Parade of Homes, and they have like these beautiful homes on display that designers are taking great care to, you know, have all the bells and whistles, and it's amazing. And I would do that. We lived in like a 3-bedroom apartment that was pretty cramped. But I would go to those parade of homes during the summer and just imagine, oh, I can have my bathroom like this. And of course, in a rented apartment, you're not able to really make many changes. I
Right.
never made the changes, but like in here, I lock that in, It's almost like I was always doing the vision board thing, It wasn't like
Yeah.
beginning of the year, no, in my head, I had this vision, literally had this vision of what it would look like and how it would feel. And looking for this home, I was like, I wanted to feel like you're at this luxurious spa, you know, near the beach, and you're just, when you come in, it's just like, oh, wow, just you feel so at ease and at peace. And I really, I really worked to curate that as best I could with the couple coins that I had, and that's how I
Mm.
see it. But you're right. In my present space, I don't look so much at what might be like my reality is, I don't have the money to go get all the designer things and all that. But that's okay, because you know what? I'm appreciative of what I do have. And I'm always, it's not from a place of lack, I guess, when I'm thinking about what that future might look like. It's more like I have all this gratitude, and I just know that's gonna happen. Like the surrender part, like I want that. I know I want it. I'm gonna get it. Boom, make it happen. It's kind of like that.
So, okay. So is that just because I feel so because in the Mind Rebel Academy, especially in part one, this is what we do. We do the
Yeah.
visioning work, and
Mhm.
we get so many questions. And I mean, I struggle with surrender as well, but we get
Yeah.
so many questions about surrender, trust.
Yeah.
Um, what what is what's your process in surrendering your trust, or what's even your relationship to trust? Because from how I see you and perceive you, it feels like you have bucket loads of trust
Yeah.
and faith in the process. It's like, I wonder if that's the secret ingredient that you have.
You know what? You saying that made me think. When I found the MRA, I was definitely drawn in by, I think it was Instagram.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like the I had been looking, I really had been looking. I found like 50 different programs, and none of them felt like the one for me. They all had something that were, to offer that looked great, different aspects, but it just didn't feel, I couldn't say that that was the one I wanted to commit to. And sometimes I didn't know why. It just didn't feel good. But when I saw the Instagram post that talked about it, and I was drawn in, and then I stumbled upon the scholarship thing. Do you remember that? And I was like, I don't even know if this is still active. Is this old? Like, what does this do? I don't know. I poured my heart into that
You
application.
poured your heart and
So you
soul
talk
into
about
that
trust.
application.
I
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna tell it
Um,
all. And I put everything in it. And I was just as transparent as I could be. I wanted you to feel, I like writing anyway, but I wanted you to feel how I felt when I thought about being a student there, with this program, and how much I would have to contribute, once I went through, and I'm committing, but I really wanted to give that glimpse that I trusted that once I do this, um, it's gonna work out how it should. And to be honest, if it hadn't worked out, then I'd be like, well, that wasn't the one for me. You know what I
right.
mean? It
Yeah.
wouldn't be like, well, let me see if I could, it'd be like,
There's no forcing.
it's no
Yeah.
forcing. Yeah, it's ease.
Yeah.
It's all about ease.
Ease and unfoldment. And
Yes.
so what, okay. What are some of you talked a little bit about some of the practices that you've done.
Yeah.
Like I love the homes that you walk through and the kind of the mental noting, and you also talked about the list you created and the preparing your space. So I
Yeah.
would love, I would love to kind of pick your brain around some of some of they feel like embodiment practices,
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
taking it from, just the pages of your journal into something concrete.
Yeah.
And I'd love to learn more about your process. The things that have worked really well for you.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I'm like, how, I think it's, if it was like a step by step thing, it's, I let myself go crazy with like, what are my dreams? Sometimes I feel like people won't even look at their dreams.
Absolutely. Sometimes that question, what is the biggest, boldest dream you could hold for your life?
Right.
Sometimes that question is just
Scary.
scary and far too big.
Yeah.
Because when do we have space and time to think about that?
Right.
Unless we give ourselves permission.
Yeah. And daydreaming, I mean, that's like childish or something,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It's inefficient. It's childish. It's,
Mhm.
yeah,
But the
unpredictable.
funny thing is I don't take myself too seriously anyway, but I always have this it's almost like a, what do you call it? It's almost, sometimes I feel like I'm on a show. There's
Yeah.
music playing in my head. There's like a whole storyline running, and I can be really silly at times, and um, someone can say a thing. I'm like, oh, that reminds me of this song. But playful. I think I
Yeah.
stay in a playful place for most of the day. Like most of the time. Granted, there's times when I have to get really serious, and there's times and places and reasons, but more often than not, I'm playful and curious, and I don't put constraints on myself. So I'm already starting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I think about like what would really make my heart happy, um, I I go there, and then I think it's the gratitude that I talked about. So like all that keeps my energy high, my vibration high, if you will. Joseph and I was so tickled when we were driving one day, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh." And I was like, "What? What?" Like, I thought he saw something in the road, and he pulled over and he grabbed his phone. He was like, "Look at that sunset." And I was like, "You do that too?" Like sometimes I didn't know that about him, but I would do the same thing. Like, whoa, we live in Colorado, the mountains. I've lived here over 30 years, and I still sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, they're just like, bam, here we are. What? You know what I mean? Like, they're just so beautiful. And they don't apologize, they just take up their space. And I'm like, I want to be like that. But yeah, so we just appreciate those sunrises, sunsets, the mountains, the beauty, that nature has to offer. And I was like, yeah, definitely he's the one. When he did that first time, I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, just staying
Check
in
them.
that
You pull out
space.
the list. Check.
Yeah, exactly. He's
47.
real.
Yeah.
He's and he's as goofy as I am too. But yeah, so I think what that equates to though is that my energy, my vibration is high.
Yeah.
I don't try, I say try, but I just naturally feel like that's kind of where I am. And I was telling a friend of mine the other day that the scary thing about that is if I'm always up here, when something tragic happens, it is a crash,
Mhm.
because I'm like, "Ooh," I don't watch the news all day. There's people that I know that just it's 24 hours a day. Like I do think there's something to what you consume, whether it's what you're reading, listening to, watching, so I try not to focus on things that don't make me feel, you know, peaceful at least.
Mhm.
And really good if it could be joy. So yeah, I think starting from that place, it's a lot easier, to then envision.
Yeah. So I heard you say first you give yourself permission to ask questions like, what
Yeah,
would make my heart happy?
right.
You give yourself permission. You have a playful demeanor and joyful demeanor. Like
Yeah.
and that sounds like it's a priority for you, like to
Mhm,
you protect your space so that you
mhm.
protect your energy and um yeah, so keeping your energy aligned and vibrationally at a certain level
Yeah.
helps you like those emotions that you named help you stay in a state of like energetic openness.
Mhm.
That state helps us to not grip, like it helps us to hold the dream loosely
Yes.
because life. And I'm sure you can attest to this, DeAngela, when you and your now husband were friends for several years beforehand. Had you got it in your mind when you were writing your list of like where you're going to meet him and when you were going to meet him and in what capacity you were, or whatever? It's like that, those details start to constrict the whole process.
Right.
And that's the gripping, that's the holding the dream too hard, that
Yeah.
we close ourselves off to literally what could be right in front of your eyes.
And it's way more than I had on that list. You know, what I got when I let go and leaned in and just surrendered. I'm telling you, way more. I'm still like shocked. But
Wow.
yeah, you're right. You can't, it's not like, okay, the address of the house I want to manifest. No, it's
Right.
how do you want to feel when you're in this space?
How do you want
What
to feel?
maybe what,
Yeah.
do you like the weather where you're at? Would you rather, be more less rain and more of a certain
Yeah.
thing? But too many things that feel constraining.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you start, like you said, easing into that. You're gripping, it's desperate, it's not the right energy. It repels
Yeah.
what you want more than pulling it to you. So yeah.
So, okay, so here you are at this stage of your life in the happiest relationship on the face of this planet.
Yeah.
In the home you dreamed up, so I what is next for DeAngela? What is next in your greatest vision? What's
Yeah.
left? What's next?
So before we got on, I talked to you about the note, I'll call it a journal entry that I found, even though it was more than that I wrote in 2009. I didn't even realize this, but one of the things I talked about in there, besides being a life coach, was having retreats. And I thought retreats popped into my head recently in the last couple of years. No, it's been on that list. And I just sort of let it go. That's the other thing. It's like it's almost like when you tuck away some money and you're like, yeah, for a rainy day, I'm gonna you
Yeah.
literally like put it in a special place and then you forget about it. When you find it again, it's like, oh wow, it's like that.
Yeah.
But the retreats, that's something I really want to do. And I think that last year when I was working at a different job, I got burned out.
Mhm.
And I guess now that I think about it, I can be thankful for that burnout, because what I learned about that was when you talk about exquisite self-care, now
Mhm.
I know what you mean.
Mhm.
That's my priority, is practicing exquisite self-care, because I was doing the opposite. I was giving everything and then some to a job, and that wore me down so bad I thought I had a heart attack. Um, and I had to. That was what it took, though. I'm pretty sure there were signs cropping up all over, but then when that happened, it was like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't the the path I want to be on. So it was like a wake up call for me. And then the retreats are like wellness retreats. That's going to be built into it, but I want to have at least 4 retreats per year and
Mm.
have people come, especially people from the BIPOC community. I feel like we're guilty. I think a lot of people are, but especially um, because we don't get a lot of chances to rest. Like even when you are, like you're still kind of on guard sometimes.
Mhm.
So to give people permission and an opportunity to just unplug, disconnect from everything, and just be good with that, So we'll do like breath work and meditation. I got a yoga teacher training certification. I'm happy about that. But whatever feels good and feels easeful, we'll incorporate that. And I would love to see some of the people that I work with in coaching, attend these as well. Because I know the beauty of what you can leave with in terms of just feeling so much better. It's almost like an ER of a different sort, right? For your soul.
Yeah. An ER for your soul.
That's
I
what my
love
retreats
that.
want to feel like, like, oh wow, connect with people and just sort of, you know, tune out all the noise and and get centered and get to that place like I talk about, like, where my vibration is really high, but it feels so good. And
Mm,
I just want to give that to people. Um, I just didn't realize I had been talking about it or dreaming about it for 14 years.
wow. It's almost like I sometimes almost wonder if there's a part of us that has the whole blueprint. You know,
Yes.
it's like there's a part of us that knows the
Whole
whole thing.
thing.
And then in our moments of inspiration and connection, we get little like drops of it. And some are
Right.
like some are ripe and ready. And
Yes.
others are just like little drops for now. Just
Yeah.
like you're in 2009, like it's just a little drop for now. And
Mhm.
okay, I'm gonna go tuck that away until it ripens.
Time, yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm so excited. I can't wait for this. And
How do you balance? How do you balance is another question I get asked a lot. I'm curious to hear your answer to this. How do you balance being so joyous and grateful in what you have today
mhm,
and hold a bold dream in your heart for what's next? How do you balance that?
yeah, it's not a thing, and maybe it was in the past, but it's not a thing that I have to really like work at anymore. Now it comes naturally. So I, my car, I broke my mirror on the side, on the passenger side, because I hit the inside of my garage like 3 times.
I've
But
done.
when I get in my car, I'm like, I really like this car. It is so it it's the first car that I was able to, well, the second one, but I was able to get that I chose. Like before I'd be like, okay, ooh, your credit sucks. So you could choose these three pieces of crap. What do you want? So it's the first
Mhm.
luxury car that I chose because I changed my life and got my shit together. Can I curse on?
Yeah,
But like I feel like and before I think I was getting what the best that I envisioned for myself, which were little pieces of crap, like
Mhm.
something shifted in me and I realized I deserve better and I can afford this. First of all, let me work on my credit and whatever it is I need to do, be responsible, and 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 I'll be honest, getting out of that relationship helped me with that because I was able to like focus in and not blame him for what was going
Right.
wrong. And so once I was able to do that and I was deliberate, I positioned myself, as we talked about, got
Mhm.
prepared and put myself in a position to choose that car. But anyway, choosing that car, um, this home, like I just find myself walking through the spaces and sitting with, wow, it's not the 10,000 square foot home that I put in that vision, but wow, this
Yeah.
this is my home. It's our space. I'm proud to call it home, and it feels so good to be here. It feels very safe and I'm excited to like do some more work. I haven't painted, like I've been in here 5 years. I haven't done a lot to actually like really put my stamp on it like I could. So I'm excited to do that. So I think that that helps and that makes me feel it's like that cycle of gratitude, I guess. Because I'm always in there, like, oh yeah, I can paint it. I like it today, but what I'm gonna do tomorrow, and then it'll really, but it's like, I like it today. I really do. And I know what it took for me to get here. So it just makes me feel so proud and honored. But yeah. Does that help answer that
Oh
question?
yeah. It's just you just simply you you exude it. You exude this energy of having, having shared a piece of your journey today with us, and the gratitude that you have for what you have built and created for yourself is so, it's truly awe-inspiring.
Mhm.
And that your attitude, the attitude's the wrong word, but your perspective, that's what I
Mhm.
want to say.
Okay.
Your perspectives on life, your perspectives on like the way your mind works is
Mhm.
beautiful,
Oh,
DeAngela.
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Your energy is incredibly uplifting and inspiring. And I know I'm leaving this conversation feeling so grateful for all I've built and created in my life too. You serve as this reminder.
Yes. You
You
inspire me. Are you kidding?
Thanks, Angela.
Wow. You inspire me so much. Yes. That was my hero's journey. you know, when I
Yeah.
reflect back, I think about different parts in my life,
Yeah.
and you help me get the words, you know.
Mm.
And every time I hang up after coaching someone, I'm like, that's my version of how Taryn would have done it.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm so
Yeah.
excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for sharing your story. This was absolutely wonderful. And DeAngela, we're going to put your contact information in the show notes below. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, and by the time this airs, it's going to be we're recording and it's going to air in a couple months, but who knows, by the time this airs, maybe you'll have more information on retreats or
Yeah,
the ways that people can work with you. So we'll post all of that information below the show notes.
I appreciate that so much. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you, DeAngela.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. For more information, you can visit our website at www.themindrebel.com or visit us on Instagram or Facebook at the_mind_rebel_academy. And these links can all be found in the show notes below. If you like this episode, we would be so grateful if you shared it with your fellow bold dreamers.